That's right, folks. I sold everything I own, many decades worth of possessions, my home, my car, and moved to Cuenca, Ecuador. Located in the Andes Mountains at about 8,400 feet above sea level, Cuenca, Ecuador is known for its rich history and culture, Spanish colonial architecture, and its beautiful churches. It's too bad that this beauty doesn't extend to every corner of the city. I've spent the last month living in an area informally known as Gringolandia. In this video, I'm going to share some of the things I've discovered about Cuenca, Ecuador. The first thing I'll say is that you need to complete an exploratory trip before committing to a location. I started the process during the pandemic and was desperate to get the heck out. So I made the leap based on what I learned through reading online and watching YouTube, never having stepped foot in Ecuador prior to moving here. That was a mistake, as many content creators only highlight the positives and have a tendency to downplay or outright ignore the negatives. Everyone has a different lens and expectations, so it's important that you figure out if the place is a good fit for you prior to making any commitments. If flying into the Quito airport when you arrive, be aware that there are not many options for a local SIM card at the airport. In fact, I only saw one booth as I exited the airport. The SIM was overpriced and I only received 17 days of service despite paying for what I thought was a 30-day plan. So it's potentially a communication gap attributed to the differences in language, I suppose. I don't really have any advice for avoiding this, unless you can wait until you get into the city to purchase a SIM card. Despite the cost and length of service issues, the actual coverage has been great. I have no complaints about the Movistar SIM card other than the initial cost. It is only $8 to recharge it with 6 gigabytes of data and 100 minutes of calling for 30 days. I've heard a lot of horror stories about cabs in South America, but my experience in Cuenca has been nothing but positive. The Azul Taxi app is available to order a taxi, but unlike Uber, you are unable to select your destination and there will be no pricing listed. You'll need to communicate your destination to the driver when they arrive, and the price should be based on the meter reading in the taxi. Be aware that minimum cab fare is $1.50 US, so you will be paying at least that amount, regardless of the length of your trip. Have change available, as I've heard that it's not uncommon for taxi drivers to claim not to have change when you pay with more than the exact fare. People are big on greetings here. Make sure you're armed with basic Spanish salutations such as buenos dias, buenas tardes, and buenas noches. Rarely will you hear a local say hola. It will instead be a more formal greeting. If you don't know what these mean, then you have some research to do. People dress much more formally than you will be used to. You won't see a lot of print t-shirts or casual wear such as shorts or the workout type clothes that are popular in the US. The pace can be very slow here. If you are in a hurry, don't expect others to share the same sense of urgency. People walk slow and have a tendency to walk 2 to 3 wide, effectively blocking the sidewalk. The go, go, go pace that we're used to in larger cities in the US is not present here. Patience will be your friend. When it decides to appear, the sun is hot. The UV index is particularly high, usually in the 10+ range, so sunscreen is an important asset here. You will burn without it. Don't ask me how I know. I also recommend a hat and long sleeves. Coverage will be your friend here. In addition, it rains here quite frequently, and when it rains, it pours. If you are relying on your feet for transportation, then be aware that everyone seems to disappear once the rain starts. Depending on your location, finding a taxi to return home can be difficult. Make sure you are armed with an umbrella at all times. Be cautious around the river areas. The first time I excitedly walked to the river area near Gringolandia, I encountered 2 different individuals smoking from glass pipes, a gentleman urinating into the river, and several cardboard box arrangements near the bases of the trees where people were obviously camping out. Let's just say it wasn't the magical experience that I was expecting. The city essentially shuts down on Sunday. Most everything is closed and there aren't many people out and about, which makes walking around certain parts of the city uncomfortable. If you are primarily eating out, make sure you have a plan, as finding dinner on Sunday night is very difficult. Speaking of nighttime, be prepared to adjust your routine if you are a night person. I know this will be area dependent, but based on my experience, walking around after 8 p.m. here is not advised. There are some shady groups of individuals milling around in some parts of the city once things get dark and quiet down. I've had several uncomfortable encounters when staying out later than 8 o'clock. If you're not a risk taker, then plan on turning in early. power surges here frequently. Make sure you bring or purchase a surge protector for your sensitive electronics, as replacing your laptop here is a costly ordeal. The good news is that Ecuador operates on 120 volt outlets, so all of your US devices will plug right in with no adapters or converters needed. Also, the lights have gone out a couple times in the last few weeks, so be prepared to be without power briefly on occasion. Emissions. As far as I'm aware, there are no vehicle emission standards or requirements in Ecuador, so be prepared for some exhaust-scented walks through the city. Make sure you research the area you intend to stay in. Make sure that there are restaurants that are conveniently located to you, especially if you plan to be on foot. The area that I selected, Gringolandia, is primarily residential, and there are not a lot of conveniently located local restaurants. Several of the restaurants that are around here are targeted towards gringos, which means you will be paying inflated prices. There are some exceptions which I included in this video. If you are comfortable eating at places that serve local food, then lunch should cost no more than $2.50 US, and you can have a nice sized dinner for about $4 US or less. Most meals typically consist of a soup, chicken or beef stew, rice, and a small salad. Dishes also typically include grilled plantains. If you plan on eating with the locals, then be prepared to eat a lot of chicken. Rotisserie style chicken is very popular here and commonly found in many restaurants. Getting gringoed. No matter how you try and blend in, the second you open your mouth, it will be obvious that you aren't from around here. While most people play it straight, there will be some who will take advantage and charge you more because they feel you can afford it. It's happened to me many times. Don't expect everything to be cheap. Imported products, brands that you're used to seeing in your typical grocery store, will usually be very expensive. You'll need to drop your brand loyalties and seek out local products, or be prepared to pay a premium for imported goods. Some items, such as sunscreen, are shockingly expensive, so plan accordingly. While the imported items are expensive, local items tend to be cheap, especially if you avoid the chain stores and shop at local markets. Just about any bag of fruit or vegetables you are interested in will be around $1 US. Dogs are everywhere. The street dogs haven't been much of a concern, as they typically keep to themselves and are usually just looking for food. It's dogs that belong to people that I am more worried about. Leashes are optional here, so it's not uncommon to come across unleashed dogs wandering away from their owners. Some of these dogs have been more aggressive in my experience. There's also a considerable amount of dog feces along the sidewalks, so for folks that plan to be on foot, be aware. Spanish here is different than the Spanish I'm familiar with. Even with some basic knowledge, I found that some words here are different than what I learned in school. Prepare yourself by taking lessons, preferably from someone who is familiar with the Ecuadorian dialect. If that's not possible, still learn as much Spanish as you can before arriving. There are very few English speakers here, unless of course you don't mind spending a lot of extra money to frequent the establishments that cater to gringos. These are just some pieces of advice that I have for folks who are interested in potentially relocating to Cuenca. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and we will see you next time.